Today we have a mind-blowing story of revenge on a cheating fiancé, and this guy planned his revenge with such detail that even I was surprised. And let me tell you, he executed it to perfection and also got a big cherry on top. After getting engaged to the girl of his dreams, his fiancé started behaving really nasty. Knowing his worth and being clever, he executed an amazing step by step plan to balance karma. Whoever says nice guys finish last for sure hasn't heard this story. And even if the breakup was tough on him, something tells me he left very satisfied. So, here's the story. Nuclear ghosting revenge on cheating fiancé. First time posting. The story happened before 2020. It has obviously been several years since the incident, and I literally have never told anyone in my new life about this. Tonight, I have some good wine to drink and figured I'll let my fingers do the talking. I thought I had met the perfect woman. We met in the last year of college. We met at a party and hit it off instantly. Emily was a beautiful blonde with sun-kissed skin, and she could have been a model. Think Kate Upton type figure. She was kind, compassionate, sympathetic, good listener, and had an active life with many friends. She liked my friends, and it was awesome over the 3 years we knew each other in how our friends groups merged. Several of our friends began dating each other. It was some of the best time of my life. I was on for a postgrad in finance, and she had a degree in contractual law. This is just to say we ended up being successful in our own rights. But I'm no slouch in the looks department either. I'm 5'11", 190 pounds, and liked the gym. I wasn't a super athlete, but let's just say I was built. But I was, and still am, very shy and didn't have a lot of prior relationships before meeting her. The first evening we met, we were smitten. First night, we talked all night. Then it went to texting, phone calls daily, then dates weekly, then after a year, when I started working my new job, she moved in. I loved her family, and her family loved me. Mostly her mother, as her father was standoffish, as he was to everyone. It was a whirlwind romance. After 2.5 blissful years of overseas vacations, hiking trips, and luxury vacations, I proposed to her. She said yes. I was over the moon. Emily was doing all the planning for the wedding, and we were talking about our futures together, buying a house, children, and family trips that we were going to take together, and all such things like that. Then it happened. One evening, after we both got home to our apartment, she's a little distant. I think I noticed it right away as we were always very affectionate towards each other. This would only happen about once a week for the first month, after the proposal. Then it was more frequent. I would have been none the wiser except that I used to listen a lot of Reddit on YouTube. So I waited and observed. These bouts of ignoring me would only last a couple of hours, then she would be right back to normal. But after 6 months, with her wedding in just a year, she was like this almost every night. Sex was still great, relationship with her parents still great, but over Thanksgiving at her parents' home in Louisville, Kentucky, we lived just north of DC, she was standoffish towards me in front of her mother. Now, her mother was a very observant woman. She pulled her daughter aside to talk to her, and I could hear them arguing. After some heated but muffled words, they returned to the rest of the family and carried on like nothing was going on. I figured I could ask her about it later, and I did. She was not willing to talk about it, and asked me to wait till we were home to discuss it. I agreed as I loved her deeply and thought we could work through anything. Her mother was an older version of her. Same stunning looks. Just a few grays in her long, thick blonde hair. This is important later. Back home, I asked her about it, and she was unwilling to discuss it. When pressed on it for a week, she finally confessed that a guy at her work was trying to get to know her better. She wanted to be forthcoming, so she showed me her phone, and as I looked through it, I noticed that all the texts that would have happened during the time she was withdrawing from me were removed. There was nothing untoward in the texts, but I did go into her phone settings and turn on the locator on her phone as we shared the same phone plan. And I honestly thought it would make me see that she was not doing anything wrong. Oh, was I wrong? That second week after Thanksgiving, she had a company Christmas party. I had planned on going, but came down with food poisoning and had to back out. She had a girlfriend pick her from our apartment as they planned on drinking a lot and had a designated driver for the evening. We had planned on going out all night, so I told Emily to have a blast and I would see her in the morning. So, as I'm puking my guts out and barely able to get off the toilet for more than 30 minutes, I grabbed my phone and watched her location. First, it was a restaurant. Then, the venue of the company party. Then, a bar. None of this alarmed me until I saw her phone stop in a downtown hotel. At this point, I was miserable in more ways than three. Projectile vomiting out both ends, and now my soul too. I finally fell asleep due to sheer exhaustion at 2 a.m. At 7 a.m., I awoke and saw she was still at the hotel. At noon, she finally comes home, and I am on the mend. She loves me up, and I ask her about the previous night without mentioning anything about knowing her locations. She talks about the restaurant, party, the bar, but then she says she went to her friend's house to crash for the evening. First lie. For the next 3 months, she has to start working later and later, 3 to 4 days a week. As I start asking her about it, she becomes more and more defensive. I talked to Lauren, her mom, one evening when Fiancée didn't come home until late. I asked her about the Thanksgiving conversation, and she admitted to me that she thought her daughter might be stepping out of our relationship because of how she read her body language. She also said that her daughter was being more and more distant with her in their weekly texting conversations. With all this speculation that was going on in my mind, I kept it to myself. 2 weeks later at work, I ended up getting a new project at my company that was going to require me to fly to the Midwest, Monday through Friday, for the next 5 weeks starting in 2 weeks. It came with an increase in salary, and as I broke the news to my fiancée, she was delighted for me. I didn't think, though, that she was excited for the same reasons I was. So, I went online and ordered 4 motion-activated spy cameras for my apartment. I put one in the living room area, one in the kitchen, one in our bedroom, and one looking down our hallway. They were very small and connected to the internet via a hidden network so they couldn't be spotted on the Wi-Fi network. I secured the cameras with a password and waited. On my first week out, she had girlfriends over the first 2 nights and never worked late once. The third night, a guy came over. I was enraged. I'm sitting there in my hotel room, screaming at the monitor and calling her every name in the book. Then they went all the way. First on the couch, then in our bed. She vents in ways for him that I didn't know were possible. The worst part was, while I was watching them, I called her to see how her day was. She heard her phone, signaled him to stop, and answered. I asked why she was breathing heavily, and she said she was at the gym working out. And as soon as the call is over, she goes right back to do the dirty. I was bursting inside. Heartbreak, anger, and rage feelings of betrayal all swirled around in my heart and mind. She, who used to be so attentive, was oblivious to all of this. It hurt so much because I really, really loved her. I finally confided in one of our mutual friends, and he told me that they all knew about it for months. I was finally told. They all felt sorry for me, but again, no one said a damn thing to me, which is why they stopped inviting us out with them. I hadn't noticed before. But I could look back and remember that about 3 months prior, they gradually invited us less and less. So I figured I would try and win her back. What? Eh. No, no, no. When you find out your partner is a disgusting human being, you get away as far as possible and never ever talk back to them. I don't know why people keep trying to earn garbage back. Anyway, I planned the entire next weekend as a complete 3 days of spoiling her in every way. Wined and dined, pampering, massages, rubs, and talking to her about future plans and about how much I loved her. I knew I was starting to break through when, after her fourth glass of wine, she started to cry, and I could tell her guilt was coming up to the surface. I asked her what was wrong, but she would choke every time she tried to speak. I then told her that if she did something in her past or was having some kind of conflict in her mind, that she needed to speak to me about that. I was more than willing to talk with her about it, and if forgiveness was needed, then I was more than willing to forgive and move on. The only words that came out of her mouth was how much she loved me. It actually hurt to hear that from her, as I now had 4 separate videos of her and the other guy in more than 20 different positions. Over the next 9 weeks of traveling to the Midwest, I recorded over 40 hours of her having sex with her coworker. She never worked late once while I was gone. I tried every weekend to be extra attentive, and each week she got more and more distant. After watching this for 9 weeks, I was done, so I devised a 12-step getaway plan. 1. Gather evidence. 2. Get her out of the way to execute my plan. I booked us a 2-week trip to an all-inclusive resort in Barbados. She was ecstatic, but a week before the trip, I said I couldn't go and suggested she take a friend. I knew it was over when she didn't seem upset that I couldn't go. She obviously invited her coworker. 3. Terminate our apartment lease. It would expire 3 days into her trip, and I was the sole signature on the lease. 4. Find a job in another town. The company I had been assisting in the Midwest had offered me a job with a slight increase in salary. 5. Find a new place to live. When she is gone, perform the following. 6. Take her to the airport on Saturday. Go back home and pack all her things. 7. On Saturday, get a new phone number, phone, and email. Cancel all social media. 8. Separate us completely in regard to finances. Withdrew all the money from our joint account and then closed them. I put all her money in an envelope and packed it with her things. 9. Monday, have the movers pack all my things and ship them west. 10. Take all her things to her mother's house 600 miles away. All my fiance's belongings and Beth fit into the back of my F-250 truck. 11. Give her mother the evidence. 12. Start my new life. I didn't want to do anything that was illegal, so I made sure that nothing of hers was missing. It was so hard to pack all her stuff nice and neatly away. I never cried so hard in my life. I have read so many times on Reddit about significant others saying they will never do it again when caught, but they don't stop. My hope was that she would genuinely confess so we could forgive and move on. She never did. Twice she came really close, but her secret was too hard for her to reveal. Tuesday morning, I left our apartment north of DC for the last time. It took 10 hours to get to her mom's house. Remember I told you this guy got a really big cherry on top of his plan? I barely can believe this part of the story, but this is truly what makes it the ultimate revenge. What happened when I got there, I was not prepared for. I arrived at her mom's house around 8 in the evening. I figured she would be surprised to see me since I was coming down unannounced. Since they lived in a gated community, I had to bus her house from the front gate, so she was waiting for me outside when I drove up. I could tell that she had been crying when I walked up to see her. I asked her what was wrong, and she hugged me, saying that her husband was cheating on her with a much younger, skinnier, and prettier woman. Dumbfounded, I just held her for what was probably 10 minutes. She soaked my right shoulder with her tears and snot. When she finally composed herself, I asked if we could go in and talk. We went in, and I asked where her husband was, and she indicated that he was going fishing with his buddies at a remote cabin an hour away. Then she said, he hates fishing. She gave me all the indications that she had picked up on, and apparently it had been going on for about a year. So, doing a little bit of research, we found a credit card hold charge for a 5-star hotel that was only 20 minutes away. We later confirmed on the phone her husband was in fact there for a 4-night stay, cheating with his mistress. Two peas in a pod, I said. What? She responded. Two peas in a pod. I said again. Your husband is cheating on you and your daughter is cheating on me. That's why I came here to drop her stuff and move somewhere else. I showed her the evidence in a binder on screen captures I had made. After looking at the first 3 or 4 pages, she looked at me dumbfounded. We both hugged and cried for a good 30 minutes. At that point, she stopped crying and looked at me and said, well, tonight there's nothing we can do about it except for you and I to knock out these 3 bottles of Moscato and do some tango in every room of the house. She then grabbed 2 wine glasses and a bottle of Moscato and walked out to their private pool deck saying, are you coming out here or are you going to get your revenge? Now, I won't go into much detail because I don't want to get blue nuts, but that night and for the next 3 days, we did exercise non-stop. I put myself everywhere her beautiful body could offer. I must have danced with her 25 plus times in that period. After those days were over, we passionately said goodbye and drove to my new destination. She kept me informed as to everything that happened when now ex-fiancé got back. The day Emily got back was epic. I cancelled my phone the morning of the day she got back, so when the plane landed and she called for a ride, it indicated the phone was disconnected. She apparently had her lover take her home. He dropped her off and left. When she came to the door, a strange couple, new tenants, answered the door and she freaked out. I can't tell you how many times she tried to call me because again, the number was no longer valid. She went to her coworker's house to stay for a bit as she was already married. When she called her mom in a panic, her mom told her that I had dropped all of her belongings and mentioned that all her money was down there as well, 600 miles away. Her mom didn't tell her that we had tangoed more in 3 days than Fiancée and I had in the last 6 months, but she did tell her she knew that she was cheating on me and said I had found a new job, a new place to stay, and a new career far away from her and all the friends we had, and that her mother was also separating from her father due to infidelity as well. Apparently, she cried for days and took a week off of work, but alas, she found comfort in the arms of her married lover. Her mom never let her know where I was. I had completely cut off that part of my life. The only link I have to that old life is Fiancé's mom, and she has kept our secret to this day. Oh my god, what an ending to his revenge. I know this is a bit over the top, but honestly, can you blame the guy? After watching hours upon hours upon hours of his fiancée's love content, I'm just glad he didn't snap even harder. He actually also shared some details about what happened next for both couples. Let's get into it. After everything, my ex-fiancé's mom, Lauren, kept in touch since we both shared a sense of loss and revenge against our exes. Neither of them found out what happened between us. Lauren visited me 7 months after I moved. To many of your disappointment, we only talked and regretted our actions, knowing it was a heat of the moment thing. She told me Emily knew she had my location and was upset she wouldn't tell. I asked Lauren not to share it. Lauren and I discussed her and her husband working things out. He was extremely remorseful, gave her all his passwords, and showed her everything he'd done to hurt their marriage. She was angry, but saw he was trying to fix things. She told him forgiveness would come in time, but trust would take longer. Lauren also told him if he cheated again, she'd do the same. They cried a lot, separated for a while, and eventually went to marriage counseling. They are still together as of May of 2023. My ex fiancée was devastated by what I did. When she went to her parents to get her things, she saw the evidence and was extremely embarrassed. She was crushed. She didn't find out her mom had my contact info until months later. She begged for it, but her mom said if she tried to contact me, all the evidence would be released online. She was also upset about her parents' issues. According to Lauren, Emily was depressed for several months and sought counseling. She immediately broke off the affair and found a new job after returning from her parents. In December 2019, I found out she was married with twin daughters and living in the DC area. She was working from home and loving her new life. I'm glad she got a fresh new start. I recently destroyed all the evidence I had on her. I didn't want to hold it over her forever. I asked Lauren to let her know this. If I were in her shoes, it would have cost me many sleepless nights. As for me, I'm satisfied with my current life. Lauren and I talk once or twice a year now, just updating each other on life. The only unanswered question is whether my ex-fiancée and I could have repaired our relationship, but I never gave it another chance. Our lives are on vastly different paths now. I know some people will find this guy to be the villain of the story. I mean, he actually exercised a lot with his soon to be mother in law. But really, can you blame him? He was betrayed not only by his fiancée, but also by each and every one of his friends. This might be an unpopular take, but if someone you know is about to marry a cheating or lying partner and you are certain of it, let them know so they can make their own decision. They might get angry, but still, I would totally do it. Anyway, that's it for today, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.